The difference in the natural psychology of the indigenous people of India and Pakistan is closely related to their traditional agricultural practices. India is known for its production of rice, while Pakistan's main crop is wheat. The cultural differences that arise from these agricultural practices have resulted in different social and economic outcomes for the two countries. Rice cultivation requires a lot of water, and as a result, societies that have depended on rice cultivation tend to be more cooperative and more oriented towards long-term strategic thinking. This is because rice farming requires a lot of labor and careful coordination to ensure a successful harvest. One of the key issues that Pakistan faces is the preference for short-term gains in the psyche of its indigenous and also immigrant population. The emphasis on immediate gratification and quick success has led to a lack of long-term planning and a disregard for the consequences of actions. This is reflected in high levels of corruption, nepotism, and cronyism that are prevalent in Pakistan, and have contributed to a lack of development and progress. Another issue that is linked to natural psychology in Pakistan is the lack of emphasis on emotional intelligence, which is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage one's emotions, as well as the emotions of others. Emotional intelligence is essential for effective communication, relationship building, and leadership, all of which are critical for the success of businesses, organizations, and society as a whole. However, the emphasis on short-term gains and immediate success has meant that there is often little emphasis on developing emotional intelligence in Pakistani society, leading to a lack of effective communication and cooperation. Finally, the issue of criminal behavior is also linked to natural psychology in Pakistan. The preference for short-term gains, combined with a lack of effective law enforcement and social support programs, has led to high levels of crime in Pakistan. This is reflected in the high rates of violent crime, such as murder and kidnapping, as well as property crime, such as theft and fraud. In conclusion, the impact of natural psychology on Pakistani society is significant and has contributed to a lack of economic progress and social development. The emphasis on short-term gains, the lack of emotional intelligence, and high levels of criminal behavior are all linked to this concept, and need to be addressed in order to promote long-term development and progress in the country. Addressing these issues will require a shift in cultural attitudes and priorities, as well as investment in education, social support programs, and effective law enforcement. Research by Thomas Tilhelm and Tom Hartman has shown that the agricultural practices of rice versus wheat cultivation have led to differences in cultural values, social norms, and natural psychology between the north and south of China. As a result, people who have grown up in rice farming cultures tend to be more patient and more focused on long-term goals. On the other hand, wheat farming is less labor-intensive and requires less water, which means that societies that have traditionally relied on wheat farming tend to be less cooperative and more focused on short-term goals. Pakistan, which is a predominantly wheat-growing country, tends to have a culture that prioritizes short-term gains over long-term planning. These cultural differences have had a significant impact on the economic development of India and Pakistan. India, with its rice farming culture, has developed a more patient and cooperative culture that has enabled it to build the infrastructure and institutions necessary for long-term economic growth. In contrast, Pakistan's focus on short-term gain has led to corruption, political instability, and a lack of long-term planning. For example, India has been able to build a thriving IT industry that has become a major contributor to the country's economy. This success has been attributed to the cultural values that are common in rice farming societies, such as patience, planning, and a preference for long-term gains over short-term benefits. In contrast, Pakistan has struggled to build a similar IT industry, in part because of its cultural focus on short-term gains. Instead, it has relied on remittances from its large diaspora population to prop up its economy. In conclusion, the difference in natural psychology between rice and wheat cultures can explain the difference in economic progress and general achievements between Indians and Pakistanis. The natural psychology of a society has a significant impact on its ability to plan for the future and achieve long-term goals. It is therefore important to consider these cultural differences when designing development programs or aid packages, to ensure that they are tailored to the specific needs of each society. Building on the concept of natural psychology and its impact on economic progress, there are several ways in which this idea is reflected in the social and cultural aspects of countries like Pakistan.